Hi. Um, I wanted to chat today about the term gender doula. This is something I love this term, and I have a lot of feelings about it that are often conflicted. Um, but I heard the term several times, and then I ran into Eli, who's a gender doula in LA, and they actually train gender doulas, which is a pretty amazing thing. And we got to talking, and I was like, oh, what I'm doing is very much this and very much different. So it's a term that I think is a bit of a catch all and also is quite specific. So, where I feel like I most relate to the term gender doula is when I'm doing um, body remapping and pleasure mapping after gendered surgeries. And I say gendered surgeries broadly, so that might mean hysterectomy and it might mean a vaginoplasty. So, but I wanted to talk a little more broadly today. I was speaking with a friend today and realized like, oh, I think a lot of folks know that I do different kinds of touch work, and they don't always know what that means. So I'll make that a different video. And a lot of folks don't understand maybe the gender doula work that I do because it tends to be word of mouth. Um, I don't advertise it much because I don't need to. I have plenty of clients who are looking for that, which is great. And also, I would love for more people to know what I'm offering, that it's there. So I realized I should maybe tell you, what does a gender doula do? So for me, as a gender doula, um, I do things like search out service providers. So let's say somebody is looking for a service provider to do hip liposuction. Maybe it's F to M is seeking to slenderize their hips. Uh, I will do research into providers in your area. Doesn't need to be in Montreal. This is so far I've had clients in the United States and Canada both. So I'll do that research for you, and I will call those providers. Like let's say the top 3 providers. I'll call them and have a chat with them as though I were looking to um, go in and see them. And I'm looking for some of the things you might be concerned about. That way you don't have to feel like you're doing a total cold call. You can be like, oh, somebody I know and trust who knows what I'm looking for has already called this place. So things like that. Um, I do a lot of surgery pre and post-op planning. So you'll see on my Instagram page or my Ko-Fi / Queerly Fluid, you can find free downloads for HRT tracking, for top surgery, pre and post-op planning, which applies broadly for bottom surgeries as well. There's some specificity to be different there, which I provide in person, but things like that, because there's so many pieces that people just don't think of. And there's so many resources out there. Like you can read 10, 20 resources and get conflicting information. And that can be really confusing when you're just excited about the fucking thing you want to get done. And so I can help you walk through that and figure out what you want to forefront, what kind of support you're going to need, how we can put that in place. Do you want something like a meal train where all your friends can sign up to plan to bring you meals and your caregivers? Or are you wanting it to be more private? In which case, how might we go about getting you support given that? So, also things like preparing your body for surgery. So, just care supplements and rituals of acknowledging the transitions that we're going through, and rituals on the other side that acknowledge the complexity of what it might feel like to go through such a surgery and be in a lot of joy. For, let's say, for me, for my top surgery, when I had my breast taken off, like I had a lot of joy for the surgery I'd gone into, And I also had a lot of sadness for the complexities of that choice. For me, it was less of a gendered choice and more of a body modification. But I still had so much, in my body in relationship to my breast out in the world as a feminized person. So, um, rituals and support to help folks with that is something that I offer. I end up doing a lot of ritual work, which I love. And ritual work, can be like a one off, but it can also be ongoing care for ourselves that we might even invite others into. So, let's see. Also, I mentioned before mapping pleasure, whether it's post HRT or post surgery, or I'm not doing either of those things and I want to map the pleasure in my body from this gendered place versus places I've been before. Um, so a lot of pleasure mapping, which for me, this is where the term gender doula really shines. Like when I get to have somebody come in that says, I've never had my body touched in the ways that I want. And I hear that a lot, and often it's like, oh, I want to be, you know, I want my body to be acknowledged as masculine or feminine, male or female, whatever word somebody might use. Um, which regardless of whatever word they're looking for, my job is attunement. So my job is to hear you when you tell me what you want and figure out how to meet you there. And however you label the reception of that gets to be yours. But I hear that a lot. I just want to be touched in the ways that I relate to my body by somebody else. And I love providing that support. It's really beautiful to see somebody blossom into um, their body and be met in that. So, especially with touch. So, I also tend to do a lot of troubleshooting around challenges with work and with family and with friends and with lovers. You know, sometimes it's like, oh, like my parents are fine with the fact that I'm gay, but I don't think they're going to be fine with the fact that I'm transitioning, and I'm scared about that. How can I prepare myself for this conversation? So I end up doing a lot of that, which I really love too. I had an absolutely horrific coming out. I came out as bisexual in 2001 in Georgia in the U.S. South, um, to a good Christian family and friends whom all just walked away. So um, doing that work with people really brings me a lot of joy to be able to watch them feel prepared to go into a conversation. So no matter how well or badly it goes, um, they feel like they're ready to tackle it. I really love that. So, and I often bring in a lot of my pleasure practices around somatics for self-tending and that kind of thing, but also just the literal how to of what do I want to say? How do I want to say it? How can I make sure it's aligned with my values? What areas am I willing to have a conversation with them about? And what areas am I just stating what's happening? Because those are two different things. Like, yeah, mom, I want to talk to you about, the changing of my name because you chose my name and that's important to me. And also I'm going to do something different versus, oh, I'm not asking you whether it's okay if I change my name. I'm changing my name. That's not the question. So it's like sussing out these little pieces so that you go into the conversation feeling like you really know where your boundaries are and where your borders are, where you want to have a conversation and where you just want to be heard. So I do a lot of that. Um, I also, as a gender doula, do like aligning our gender decisions with our values. And this really comes up around feminist values. Uh, so often folks are like, okay, but let's say I identify on a feminine spectrum, and um, I have a lot of political feelings about the ways in which I'm showing up in that. And so I get to sit with people as we suss through these little details, which can make a big difference for somebody. Also, as a gender doula, Somatic gendering exercises. So it's a full online course that folks can take. And if they do that full course, then I'm willing to work with folks to do that work in person. Um, and then also building community connections. I have a lot of clients who come in who are gendering differently, and it's new for them. So they might have queer friends, but and maybe they have some non-binary and trans friends, but they don't necessarily want to rely on those folks to support them through their process yet, as they're just starting to figure out their path. So, how do we build in new connections that are going to support, you know, the different work that we're wanting to do, things like that. So, yeah, that's a little bit about my gender doula work. So I hope that was helpful. Uh, yeah. Feel free to message me, ping me if you've got some questions about that, because I'm happy to answer them. I love getting questions, it's really fun. So, uh, gender doulaship work it's such a beautiful thing because for me, uh, gender is merely a social construct. So, however you identify in your gender is your own construct that has been, you know, ushered in through your own decision making of what is it I see in the world and how do I want to be, what actually calls to my essence, and how do I show up in that. Um, and for each person, that's so uniquely different, and I love that. It's as a woman, I really insisted on being the kind of woman that I wanted to be for me, not for the world, not how other people saw me to be or wanted me to be. And I got to play with that a lot. I got to, for 35 years, I really played a lot with both masculine and feminine in a very feminized body. And now, as I'm rolling into my 40s, I get to start playing with both masculine and feminine from a masculine body. And it is a different experience on multiple fronts, let me tell you. Again, that's maybe a conversation for another day. But yeah. I also, when I did my double mastectomy, uh, I had an amazing partner who really helped guide me and support me through that process. And not everybody has that. Um, and and some people have so much support that they forget to check in with themselves. Like there's just such a huge range when it comes to doulaship work, just like any doulaship work, whether it's death or birth or gendering. But there's a massive life transition. So how to get support in that transformation, because becoming goo it's pretty fucking rough, I gotta say. Like, it is not a gentle process for pretty much anybody. So if you get to be that lucky few, then I'm grateful for you. And I'm grateful for my challenges because I really love the ways that I get to hold complexity. So a lot of my somatic work is very much that, how to hold the complexities. You know, when I was presenting as a girl and a female in the world, I often heard things like, "Oh, you're so masculine," but not in a like macho dude way. I was like, "Well, yeah, I believe we all have access to these. If they're social constructs, then we all get to construct them however we so desire, and I so desire to fucking fuck with them, because screw sexism. That's awful. It's whack." So, um, and now that I'm in a more masculine body. Oh man, I feel like I get the opposite, where folks are like, "Oh, so much femininity in this dude." I'm like, "Oh, geez. Okay, well, nothing has actually changed except perhaps the window dressing." And that's what the majority of folks, base gender off of, unfortunately, is the window dressing. So, um, gender doulaship gets to be a process of going inwards and figuring out, okay, and how do I want to relate to this from within my body and not in relation to others, because that is an entirely different thing. So, our relationship to self versus our relationship to others. So, if you've got questions about gender doulaship, feel free to DM me. I'd love to hear your questions. It's a delight to chat with folks. There are literally actually no dumb questions in this. Um, and I think it's really important to be able to ask the questions you're scared to ask. So feel free to try me. I love that. So, all right. Best wishes for a sweet evening, y'all. Bye.